Welcome to Unleash Your Audacious Confidence on Win-Win Women TV. This show is all about sharing the tips, tools, and techniques that will allow you to step boldly in the direction of your dreams despite your feelings, fears, or past failures, to imagine what's possible for yourself and live the life you deserve. Well, hello again, and welcome to this episode of Unleash Your Audacious Confidence here on Win-Win Women TV. I'm your host, Alicia Couri, and I am thrilled today because I have a guest. I have a guest with me, and we're going to bring her up, Amber Peterson. But I also want to encourage you to check out winwinwomen.com. Go to their website. There's so much really amazing information there. And you can check out other shows and other show hosts as well. And if you want to connect with me, always you can go to alicia360.com and connect with me. But today it's all about Amber and getting your money mindset right. We're all about helping you create boldness and confidence around your money. Amber is the host of Mamas and Money. Is that correct? On
Yeah.
as well. And she's a financial expert as well as a money mindset coach. So we're going to have a rich conversation because I'm all about building confidence. Yes. And
I'm so excited.
that people really struggle with building confidence around. When did you decide to become a money coach?
Yeah, it's kind of an interesting journey. I think all of our journeys are really fascinating when we look back, because when I first started out, the desire wasn't there to be working with finance and money. It was like, yeah, it's part of our lives. I'm good with other people doing that. But then I needed to go through my own life experience with money. And during that experience, when we basically hit financial rock bottom, and at the time, my husband was a financial advisor, but the stock market just crashed.
Right.
And we actually had switched firms just about a month before the crash happened. And so we were new and things were downsizing. And I was like, oh my gosh, now we're in this position I never thought we would be in. And it's interesting to look back on that now, because at the time, my mindset was terrible with money. I would think, oh, I hate money. I don't want to deal with money. Why is money so hard? Money is evil, and all of these different things. And then when we hit that rock bottom, I thought, you know what? This isn't working. This isn't getting me to where I want to be. I need to change something. And so first I started learning about the basics of money, figuring out, okay, well, let's just start to learn about it. I could gain some additional knowledge, even though my husband was already in the industry. And then I went to become a licensed financial professional. And then I decided, you know what? As I was working with a lot of clients, I was like, you know what? What's even more powerful is giving women and men the opportunity to look at their mindset around money, because that really is the foundation before even making decisions around money, because it affects everything that we do. And so that's why I was like, yep, I need to go into coaching. And now I'm a certified coach within money mindset, because I know it's so powerful in creating what we want.
Oh gosh, it is so powerful. Uh, you know, this, I didn't realize how many limiting beliefs around money I have. Like until I took courses, like I was telling you before we went live, like I went to a retreat all around your money mindset and building freedom around that mindset and around money. And I didn't realize from like really early in childhood, like my first memories of money in childhood affected me as a, well, now I'm in my mid 50s, but back when I was in my, when I did that, I was in my mid 40s. And I'm like, oh my gosh, the thing that happened to me as a child around money and my parents talking to me about not having enough or not, that I can't have that or not deserving it because it's expensive and I wasn't good enough at the time. I wasn't behaving well enough, how much that impacted my relationship with money moving forward in my life. So how can you have a bad relationship, or belief around it and want it? Like it's just it's what you call that double binding message. It's just incongruent. And
Yeah.
so, how do we build congruency around money?
Mm-hmm. And you're bringing up some so fascinating because a lot of us don't really realize or are aware of what we were taught with money. Like, so let me give you a couple examples. So sometimes we might hear of something like, hey, you should know that money doesn't grow on trees.
Right.
Yeah, if you've heard that saying, or if you've heard you have to work really hard for your money. So there's those, messages that we receive. But then there's also those messages that you alluded to of, we can't afford that. We don't deserve that, and it all comes and filters kind of into us to say, oh, this is the way money is. This
Hmm.
is money beliefs, right? Or this is just how the world works around money. But then you brought up something that was really fascinating too when you said, well, what if we come to as an adult and we're like, well, but we need money to do the things that we want to do. And if we don't have money, it's really hard to accomplish our goals and dreams. And yet, if we have these limiting beliefs, just like you said, they're not compatible with each other. I was had someone that we were coaching, and it was so fascinating because she brought up this very thing, and she goes, well, I want to make more money for me and my family. I know that there's all these goals and things that we want to do. And as the conversation went on, she was like, but I don't want to be wealthy. We're like, oh, that's interesting. Why don't you want to be wealthy? And she's like, well, because wealthy people are this, this, and this. And she started listing all of these things that were negative. And so she's like, but
Yeah.
I don't want to be like that, but I want to earn more money. So it's kind of like telling money, I do want you, but I don't want
But I don't. Right.
you.
I Yeah. I want to date you maybe
Yeah.
a little bit.
But I don't want to have a full
I don't
relationship
want to
with
have a
you.
full relationship with you. Right? I don't want. Yeah, and I don't trust you, and I don't trust me with money. And so these beliefs that are built from childhood, because that's really the root of where they come from our observation. And one of my mentors, David Nagel, talks about, the subconscious mind can only intake information. It does not have the ability, when you're a child from 0 to 7, to reject the information or even evaluate the information correctly. It does not
Hmm.
have that ability. And so we take in all this information, and then we start from 7 to 25, start putting meaning to it. It's like, well, I misbehaved. So I didn't get this thing. My mom didn't buy me this thing because I misbehaved. So then you start putting these meanings together. It must be because money doesn't, I can't get this because I don't deserve it, or because I'm a bad person and so I can't have it. Or you grow up hearing your parents talking about how evil money's the root of all evil, which is not true. Or these people, just like that, your client, these people are bad people. All rich people are like that. All rich people. And it's so not true. It's so not true.
Hmm.
So what are some of the beliefs? Like, we talked about a few of them, but what are some of the, because I want people, what I do on the show is I really want people to
Hmm.
identify with how they speak or think about something to an action that they take, so that they can really start recognizing when oh, I say that all the time. Oh, I did that. And that's what kind of sparks that recognition that needs to shift. So what are some
Hmm.
of the things that people say or do around money that they can identify it as a limiting belief?
A great question. And I think one thing that everyone can do that is so helpful, especially if they're in a very charged environment around money. So, what if an unexpected bill comes in, or they're coming to the end of the month and they're like, oh my gosh, I don't have enough money to meet the rest of the month? So something that's maybe a little bit more emotional is to write down everything they're thinking about money at that time, just because it opens us up to be like, oh, that's interesting. Look at the different things that I am thinking about money. Now, some of the specifics I think that come up quite often are we can't afford that. And that one's an interesting one because we might look at our budget and say, no, really, we can't. There's not money in
Not
there to
enough
meet
money,
it.
but
Yeah. But if we also take into evaluation the money that's coming in, we are choosing where we're putting it. So we're choosing to say, hey, I want it maybe towards my home payment. I want to make sure that that's something I have, or to heat, or to gas in my vehicle. And so we are choosing every single day where do I put our money. And something that's a little more powerful to say is, I choose not to spend my money on that. Because then it's not, oh, it's out of my control, I can't afford it. It's, nope, that's not where I choose to spend my money right now.
yeah.
And that puts us in the driver's seat. So that's kind of one thing that's very specific that I hear quite often is we can't afford it. Another one would be there's not enough. We don't ever have enough money. And I think this also is kind of another one of those limiting beliefs that when we tell ourselves that, we feel hopeless. We just don't have enough. There's nothing we can do about it. That's just our lot in life, you know?
Right.
And it just doesn't inspire us to then take the action that we want to create the results that we want. So instead, it would be like, okay, well, if I feel like I don't have enough now, what if I had enough? What would that look like? What would it mean to me to have enough? And then go from there, from that space of what do I want to create? Yeah. So those
Yeah.
are just a couple of different specific ones.
I love that. And I also find that people are locked into, not everybody, let me not generalize people. Let's just say there's this idea sometimes that gets locked into our brains that our job is our only source of money. And so how else can it's either job or credit. Like if I can't make it with my job, or I can't like, where else is it going to come from?
Yeah. And
And then
I
they
think,
get into that scarcity. So talk to me
mhm.
about scarcity mindset. What does that look like?
Yeah. And how I look at it and break it down, because I teach something in my money mindset of this specific model of CTFAR. Basically, that means you take your circumstance, any circumstance in your life, you have a thought about it. And I suggest picking one, because then you can really evaluate and see what role it's playing in your life. So usually the one that's either most problematic or the one that's keep coming up most often for you. And then from that thought, you're always going to have a feeling about it. So if you think I'm no good with money, it might lead to discouragement, because you're like, well, I'm no good with money. It's, I feel terrible about it. So you're discouraged. And then when you're discouraged, you take certain actions, right? Whether it's action towards something or inaction and not choosing to do something, which ultimately creates the results that you have in your life. And so when you look at scarcity, and the way I break down scarcity is, first you have a thought about it. And the more often you have very similar thoughts, it becomes your mindset around money. So if I believe there's not enough money, you're going to start to have a mindset of money is scarce. And then along with your experiences, you start to solidify that as beliefs. Now, what is going to have an effect on what you do is that your mindset and beliefs, if you're believing there's not enough money, money is scarce, it's going to affect what you're thinking about money. So anytime you go into a decision, whether it's bills that you have to pay, money coming in from a job, you're going to have those thoughts of, well, there's just never enough. I can't produce enough. There's not enough coming from my job. I'm stuck. And you're going to see this cycle repeat itself over and over and over again. And sometimes, clients can see, oh yeah, I've seen this pattern in my life where I start to get ahead and then I go back into there's not enough again.
Right.
And that can be contributed to what we're thinking about our money. So if someone has a scarcity and they're starting to recognize, oh, when I'm out and about and I have a money decision or money comes up and I'm thinking money's scarce and there's not enough and we can't afford it. That's kind of interesting. Is that true? And does that really serve me?
I love that. Don't judge it.
Yeah,
Like,
don't judge
don't
it.
judge it. That's the thing. It's like, don't judge it immediately. Like, I love how you said, isn't that interesting? Observe it. Don't judge it. Yeah. Go ahead. Sorry. I just wanted to point that out because
Oh,
people
that's so
get
good
into
because, yeah.
judgment and into shame and into guilt and into feeling bad. Don't judge it. Just observe it. And then, that's interesting.
Yes, no, I'm so glad you picked up on that because I think, especially as women in general, we're so hard on ourselves for everything under the sun.
I thought about it again. Oh no, I did it again.
Oh, right. Oh, I had that thought, and that's not a good thought. And I
And
can't,
it's not
do things with
good.
my money. Yeah, exactly. And so that's the thing is if we're not only noticing that maybe we're thinking thoughts that don't serve us, but then on top of it, we're beating ourselves up over it. We're not really accomplishing what we want to accomplish right now. We're just saying, oh, see, I'm not having the money mindset I want, and I'm going to rip myself apart for it.
Right.
Doesn't solve anything. So I love to look at it as saying, let's be curious and be like a scientist to try and figure out, I'm going to gather some information about how I think about money. That's interesting. Why do I think that way? Do I really believe that? Because you talked about, things being kind of cemented in our mindset, and we just think that's how it is. But I love being able to like pull something out of my mind and look at it and go, let me just observe this. Do I really believe that's true? Do I really believe there's not enough money in the world? Well, what about all those billionaires? Seems to be plenty of money there, and it
Right.
keeps cycling through. It flows through.
So
Do
what
I
do they
really
know
believe
that
it?
I don't know? Oh,
Yeah, so it's just fascinating to just kind of play with it and just ask ourselves, is that something we want to continue to believe to help us get where we want to be?
and then what are some tactics then? Now you've observed, you've gathered the data, and you're looking at it. You say, okay, I need to shift this now because clearly I have a lack mindset around this particular area of money. How do I then begin to shift that where I am producing the money that I do want to produce?
Mm-hmm. I think there's several things you can do. Now, when it comes to shifting our mindset, it, and we've probably heard this in different settings where it's like, oh, just think you're abundant with money and it's going to be great. Just think happy thoughts. It's going to be fine. Which
Butterflies
sounds
and rainbows.
lovely.
It's lovely to think about it, but no, we need some action. We
Yeah.
need to
And
shift that belief. Hmm.
yeah. And the reason why that is not always applicable is if you have a money mindset, let's say that money is scarce or money's difficult, you're not going to automatically go to money's amazing and abundant because your brain's going to look at that and be like, no,
You
that's
lie.
not correct.
You're
You don't really believe that.
lying. Don't lie to me.
Yeah, try that. Yeah, no, I don't think so.
That's not
Right. So what we need to do is I like to call it a thought ladder, where we start with where we're at and we shift just a little bit to something that's still believable to help us just refocus our efforts to keep moving up the ladder. So instead of jumping from, money is horrible to money's amazing, you go, okay, thinking money is horrible is not helpful. But what if I just shift it to money's a part of my everyday life?
hmm
Still believable, a lot less painful than money is horrible. And I think those steps are much easier to take. And it opens us up to the possibility of creating more because it's not as painful as those previous thoughts.
hmm
And
And with it, you have to
yeah,
learn some tactics, some actual money tactics to help you with investments and with like, but you have to first get rid of the fear of it.
exactly. Well, because here's the other side of it. If I'm working with a couple and they're like, yeah, we want to invest our money, but they have fear that, okay, if I invest, I'm just going to lose it anyway. There's no way I'm going to make the money I need to make. I'm not going to be able to retire. How likely are they going to make the decision to invest their money? Yeah, it's going to be like, no, there's too much fear around it. We're worried we're going to lose it all. We're just not going to
Yeah.
invest. Yeah. So that's why I think it's so important to look at our mindset first, because then when you start looking at that and adjusting that, then the other specific money steps coming afterwards are so much easier. Your budget becomes easier, not such a burden. Being able to save becomes easier. Staying out of debt becomes easier. Investing becomes easier because then you can start opening up to the possibilities.
Oh, that's awesome. That's really helpful. You talk about investments. One of our viewers sent in a question about 401k
Mm-hmm.
and like protecting your 401k from market dips. So how can we look at that with our mindset? The way that question came in is, how do we protect our 401k? From a mindset perspective, and then from a tactical perspective.
Well, I think what makes the dips in the market so emotionally charged is what we think about it. Because if we're thinking we're going to lose money, what does that mean for us? Does that mean our livelihood's going to change? Does it mean that we can't retire? Does it mean that something awful is going to happen? And that's usually what we're thinking when we look at dips in the market, because we think there's somehow it's going to affect me negatively. So it comes with a lot of fear and a lot of emotion. So I would like to invite just to say, is those dips in the market, are those going to affect you that way? Do you want to view them that way?
Mm-hmm.
And it's going to be different for different situations that people are in. If it's a younger person that's looking at dips in the market and they still have time in the market, maybe that mindset is just that fear that they're building for themselves, but not really true, because they don't need that money for years and years and years to come. Now, if it's someone that's either getting ready to retire or going into retirement, they might say, well, I need that money now. It's going to affect me right now. And there's other specific things you could do. And we'll talk about that in a second, of like different money decisions you can make to make that more protected. Mm-hmm. But at the end of the day, we get to decide if it's going to be a problem if the market goes down, or if we're going to figure it out and it's going to work out no matter what happens, if the market goes down or not. Yeah.
Great.
Yeah. At the end of the day, you can believe
from both perspectives. Mm-hmm. You have to be able to look at it. What do I believe about it? And how do I believe it's going to affect me? And then what actually, can I do to protect it based on where I am? So I love that. You mentioned about how whatever you believe, your brain really looks for evidence. And I talk about that on my show too. Well, this is my show. What am I talking about? Talk about that on the show too. Of how your brain really looks for evidence to prove you right. Whatever you're believing, it looks for the evidence to help prove that particular belief. And Leland Van Vanderwall talks about that our belief systems are that we don't always evaluate our belief systems. I'm paraphrasing. But if we take the time to actually reevaluate what we believe about something, chances are our belief around it will change, because we don't reevaluate. So the things that we believed when we were 10, 11, 12 about a particular thing, if we don't reevaluate that belief or ask questions and be curious, like you say, around it, we're going to believe that thing our whole life, and it may not be actually true. So that, how do we then stop looking for the evidence to prove our beliefs and start looking in the opposite direction? Like, how do we have our mind shift to start looking for different evidence?
Great question. Well, and as an example, if we're thinking once again that there's not enough money, our brain's going to be like, "Ooh, that's what she believes," right? That subconscious goes into effect and says, let's pull everything from her past. Let's help her remember experiences to help her be right. And that's why it's so important to look at that belief set, because then if you think, okay, I don't want to think money is scarce anymore, but I want to look at money. How is it going to serve me? What do I want to create? Is it possible to bring in the money that I want to bring in? I wonder how that would work, because our brain loves a problem to solve. And so as soon as we start focusing on, this is what I want to create with money, because it's a tool I can use to create anything that I want. Okay, now let's get our brain to work then on how to solve that, rather than making it right on the things we have chosen to believe in the past. So sometimes when I can see myself going into that negative pattern again, I go, oh, that's how I used to think. But now I know I'm abundant and I want to create this. So how can I make this happen in my life? Let's think about that. Let's brainstorm about how that could happen.
Yeah, that's great. So it's all about being present and being aware to help you shift these things, and doing exactly what you said at the beginning. Just start actually writing it out, like being mindful and say, oh, I wonder what it is I think about this particular thing. And when the thought comes up, just write it down. Don't judge it, just write it down and say, and then you take an inventory. How many times this week did I have this thought? Oh,
Huh.
oh, that's interesting. Happened 10 times this week. All right. So, and then you can start doing, like you said, that belief ladder. Was it what did you call it?
Yeah, thought ladder.
Thought
Yeah.
ladder. The thought ladder of shifting how you actually think about it. How can people reach you, get a hold of you, watch your show? Because it's a great show.
Oh, thank you, hon. And I love talking about this, and I love opening up the conversation around money, because that's another thing when it comes to money. It tends to be very taboo. And so let's talk about it so we can learn from each other and make it the best experience possible. So the way they can reach me is come visit my show on Mamas and Money here at Win Win Women TV. I'd love to share that information with you. You can get a whole bunch more information about money. And then you can always reach me by my website, which is Amber Peterson Coaching Finance.now.site. And then you can also reach me by email, amberpetersoncoaching or at gmail.com. So I would love to be able to service and answer any questions that anyone has and help them on their money journey.
That's awesome. Um, you just said something. Now it's kind of escaped me. But oh, how money is taboo. It's so true because even that, some of us grew up in households where you couldn't talk about money. You could not talk about money. You couldn't ask about money. If you asked your parents how much they made, you get like, you know, I don't know,
Yeah,
sent
it's
to
not polite, right? You
it's
don't ever
not
bring that
polite.
up.
You don't talk about money at all. And now you're having to break free of something that's kind of been how you were raised your whole life and talk about it to someone. And there's so much shame and guilt and embarrassment around money that especially women have to learn to break free of. In the last couple minutes that we have, I want to ask you about gender roles and money, because that's
Mhm.
another big thing. How
Yes.
how have you found that women can start shifting their mindset around their role in a relationship around money?
Well, once again, I think we do take the experiences of how we were raised and the people around us, and we just assume, once again, that that's how the rules are. Traditionally speaking, it tends to be the male that brings home income. And, I kind of think of like the 50s, right? And then the mom stayed home and did raising of the family and cooking and cleaning, right? But we just want to ask ourselves, is that traditional view of roles helping me and my family get to where we want to be? And I think we are seeing subtle shifts of that too, where there's some men now that you maybe stay at home and the wife goes out to work, right? And I just love asking this question, but it's always like, what's serving you? Because
Mm,
everyone's money journey is going to look different, and that's okay because it's your journey. And
it's yours. Yeah.
yeah, you want it to be yours. You don't want it to look like anybody else's, because then you're conforming to the way someone else wants to live their life. And
Yeah.
so looking at those roles, saying, well, what works best for us? Does it work best for us that one of us stays home and one goes to work? Awesome. Is it best that we both go to work? Awesome.
Yeah.
Whatever is getting you to your goals, your dreams, and having the life that you want to have, then keep doing it. Yeah.
Yes. But you get to choose. That's the amazing thing. You get to choose.
Yes.
Oh, next week, you know what? Next week on the show, we're talking about wage equality. I have an expert coming in to talk about women's money and how much less we get paid for the same job, and some of the laws that are changing around wage equality and how you can get involved in that. So I really, if you're interested, if you're watching and you're interested, don't miss next week's show because we're gonna dive in deep. She is passionate about wage equality. So I'm excited to have that conversation too. So back again about money, around money, we're gonna be talking about building that confidence around asking for what you deserve, what you need, what is equivalent to the work that you're doing, and how to find that information out. So any last thoughts? before we close off?
Yeah, just, and I love what you said. Everyone listening has the power within themselves to create what they want with money. The power has always been with you all the time. And that's what I love giving everyone that listens to your show, is saying, you don't have to stay stuck. You can start today to shift your money mindset to create what you want in your life. So let's go do it.
Yes, I love it. So, as we leave the show today, I am encouraging you to be bold, to be brave, and every day do one thing. And we talked about money mindset. So, do one thing, like one thought, think one thought a day towards having that positive, abundant money mindset that you desire, so you can have the life that you deserve and the life that you dream of. And step out with audacious confidence. I will see you next time on another episode of Unleash Your Audacious Confidence here on Win Win Women TV. Bye, everybody. Mwah.